love, welcome back to another episode. Today we are a little bit more casual in a different setting, and that's because one, I have a new office, and two, we are doing an Instagram Q&A. So over on Instagram a few days ago, I said, where/why do you feel stuck on your hormonal health journey? And let me just say this. Y'all had a lot of feelings, and I love when I get the opportunity to just be basically your women's health coach, right? Answer questions, and with the reset going on, there were so many girls who were like, I feel really good, but I also want to know about this or that. So let's go ahead and just roll through these. Okay, the first question is, why do I crave coffee and pizza? Well, there's a lot of reasons. One, you have to remember that caffeine, specifically, you might like the flavor profile. You also might have this affinity for acidity, but also you might feel like you cannot cope without a cup of coffee, which I get that feeling, but also be careful, okay? When it comes to pizza, more often than not, you're craving pizza for two reasons. One, your body probably is looking for more carbohydrates, and two, your body is probably looking for a bit of vitamin D or calcium, because contrary to popular belief, cheese is actually beneficial when it comes to your overall health because it does provide a good source of calcium. It does provide a fairly okay source of vitamin D. So that could be why. In terms of the carbohydrate aspect of things, it's your body needing more fuel, more energy. So keep that in mind. The second question, I love this question, is there's a lot of info, hard to know what specifically applies to me. And there's a rule of thumb. It's an acronym that I recommend people use called BRAIN, okay? B stands for benefits, R stands for risk, A stands for alternatives, I is for intuition, and N is for nothing. Whenever you are processing through information on the internet, there's a ton of it, right? You want to use your brain. You want to know, okay, how is this information beneficial? Are there any risk to this information? Okay, well, are there any alternatives? What does my intuition say about things? And what happens if I don't apply this information I've just learned? That's one of the first places to start. The second place to really go deeper is to either get some hormonal health testing done or look for a resource you really connect with. So this person has messaged me, she follows me on Instagram, so I might be her hormonal health resource. Well, how could she decipher what information I'm providing for her versus just in general? Well, she has to know herself, right? So you have to know yourself and also be aware of what information you're looking for. So one of the reasons we suggest hormonal health testing is because that will give you a baseline of what's going on with your health. And then from there, you can kind of decipher oh, I'm dealing with an estrogen dominance related issue, or oh, I'm dealing with a low progesterone related issue, right? What you really want to be mindful of as you're consuming information is just simply knowing where you are on the spectrum. And if you don't know where you are, that's okay. A lot of people don't know. So then you look at your symptoms or you get the right support. And on the note of getting support, you have to understand that there's a difference between somebody who's there to really support you, educate you, and empower you on your journey, and then people who are there to diagnose and treat you and teach you how to live with the condition. And that's no shade, no tea, but I think a lot of people are like, what's the difference between a women's health coach like Berri and my OBGYN? Well, myself personally, as a women's health coach, I'm not diagnosing you with anything. I'm just helping you manage and understand what's going on. I'm helping you alleviate, but also transform not only your health, but also the way you're perceiving different things. Whereas your OBGYN might let you know, hey, you're dealing with something like cervical dysplasia, and they might recommend a certain medication for you or give you a prescription for it, or perhaps they're recommending hormonal birth control, right? They are diagnosing and treating you, whereas I am managing and equipping you, and those are two really different things. So just keep that in mind. So I hope that answers your question. The next question, it's really more of a statement. She says, I have a pretty regular flow, but all the weeks bring different symptoms. So If you're somebody who has a regular cycle, but you're noticing changes in your body and it's fluctuating constantly, I think one of the first things you want to factor in is one, your age. So as you age as a woman, you go through different aspects of perimenopause to menopause, right? And I think a lot of people think that's a bad thing, but I think it's a beautiful thing because that's just part of the longevity process. Your estrogen levels begin to drop and your body moves from using one type of estrogen to using another type of estrogen. So if you're somebody who has a regular flow, but you notice you have a lot of different symptoms depending on your phase, one, think about your age. Are you in that perimenopause to menopause category? Keep that in mind. Number two, know that that's normal. Your body is doing different things throughout each phase of your cycle. So depending on like the symptoms, right, that you're experiencing, you want to be mindful of it. So obviously, first phase of your cycle is menstruation. This is when you're on your period. Well, the second phase of your cycle is the follicular phase. So post-period, pre-ovulation. So a symptom you might be experiencing is like increased energy, which isn't a bad thing, right? Or like this need to do more and perform more. However, if you were experiencing spotting, that would be a completely different conversation, right? So kind of understanding your symptoms in relation to your phases. Now, I've done, I think, at least 2 or 3 videos going through the phases of your cycle. But obviously I don't know your personal symptoms. It's just something to be aware of and navigate through. If you're like, I don't want to experience any symptoms at all, like I just want a drama-free cycle, I can totally resonate with that. So one of the things I recommend is proper hydration, then remineralization of the body, then proper nutrition, and of course regulation. From there, you should kind of be able to like tweak and adjust things as needed. That's like actually my hormone harmony protocol that I just gave you, those 4 things. That's what I recommend when people are trying to balance their hormones to alleviate any symptom. So there's that. Now, the next one I am going to address very delicately, and trigger warning, this is about pregnancy. Now, the reason I'm going to broach this delicately is because I'm here to inform you and not to offend you, but I also like to speak very plainly so you can understand what I'm saying. But she messaged me and said, I can't get/stay pregnant. Now, before I replied to her, I just asked her a question. I said, you know, where is this happening in your journey? So if you are somebody who is struggling to get pregnant or you cannot stay pregnant, okay, and this is happening in the first trimester, I want you to pay very close attention to what I'm saying. However, if you are experiencing a miscarriage in the second trimester or something along those lines, take this with a grain of salt because pregnancy is not my area of expertise. I can help you get pregnant, but once you are pregnant and you get into that second trimester, it's a bit above my head because again, that's not my area of expertise. But you know, if you are somebody who is struggling to get pregnant or stay pregnant, one of the things you really want to be mindful of is your progesterone levels. So once you have ovulated, there's a decrease in estrogen and an increase in progesterone. Progesterone's role is to thicken the lining of your uterus, and it really serves as the placenta for the first 3 months of your pregnancy. If you are somebody who has low progesterone levels, it will be very difficult for the pregnancy to get out of that first trimester. So one of the things I like to recommend to clients is that they really nail their nutrition and really supporting their progesterone levels naturally. Now, there is a lot of people I know who have done hormone replacement therapy because that's what aligned with them. And if that aligns with you, by all means. But I think it's really, really important that you focus in on supporting the body with progesterone and natural progesterone production. Another thing is considering working with a specialist for an extended amount of time. So a lot of people will kind of work with a specialist for maybe, you know, a month, maybe 2 months. And if they're not getting the results they want, they get really, really frustrated. And I fully can kind of like empathize with that, right? I get where you might be coming from. But what you want to know is it takes 90 days for an egg, basically 100 days, but I always say 90 days because I feel like I feel like it happens sooner than 190 is always like a good mark to go for, but you have to give your egg at least 100 days to develop. That's just the process of the body. So say for instance, you are currently trying to get pregnant as we are heading into Q3. You want to give your body 90 days to adjust to some new healthy habits that are progesterone supporting. Then in Q4, you would actively begin trying to conceive while still maintaining those habits that you had in Q3. Okay, so the first phase is simply to support the cycle, support the health, and support the progesterone production. The second phase, that second 90 days, so we have all of Q3 and then we go into phase 2, which would be Q4, is solely to support and create the right environment for conception. Right? So we got to do a little bit of groundwork first and then we build, right? And again, I say this with a lot of love, but I think with trying to conceive, it's just such a difficult thing for people to discuss. And, you know, I try to be mindful of what it is I do share and how it is I share. Now, another thing you might want to be looking into is hormone testing, but specifically fertility testing, because sometimes people have a gene that they carry. I believe it's called MTFR or THFR or something like that, and that can make it really difficult to conceive as well. So it's just kind of being aware of that. But not only this, you also have to realize that the process of conception takes two people, takes two to tango. So a lot of times responsibility is placed on the woman, right? But you also have to make sure that your partner has healthy seminal fluid, has, you know, I don't know if you know this, but you can actually read the ejaculate. So if it's really opaque or if it's really translucent, you want to be aware of those things. Also the consistency, much like you're aware of your consistency of cervical fluid, you want to be aware of seminal fluid as well. So these are things to just kind of keep in mind. Again, I say this with love, but I just feel like we got to put it out there. Now, let me go into the other place where I was asking you all questions, because a lot of this happens behind the scenes. Okay, let me go to Hannah. Also, shout out to Hannah. Me and Hannah have been on this journey together for so long. Hannah is one of the members of the community who she's just like such a great person, and I feel like she's one of my biggest cheerleaders, and I'm just so grateful for her and like the relationship. But her question for me, she is somebody who is currently doing my reset. So if you didn't know, I have a 21-day cleanse that I recommend you do at least once a quarter. This is going to help remove heavy metals and toxins from the body so that the hormones can be in the right environment to actually achieve harmony, aka hormonal balance. But her question to me was, why do I keep getting hungry? And the second question is, how often should I do the reset? So in the reset, essentially what we are doing is removing heavy metals and toxins, rebooting different aspects of your system, and then kind of restarting everything. So with her specifically, she noticed an increase in her appetite. And one of the main things that I notice is because her ghrelin levels may have been increased. Now, ghrelin, in case you've never heard of it, is your hunger and appetite hormone. Well, when you go from not eating enough to eating like exactly what you need, that kind of wakes up your thyroid, wakes up the metabolism, and it encourages you to eat more, which is actually what you want when you're trying to balance your hormones. You want your systems to be waking up. You want your thyroid to function properly. You want your adrenals, your kidneys, your liver, all to function properly. So the increase of appetite is because of that. Now, how often would I recommend somebody do a reset? At minimum, twice a year, do a cleanse or a detox, right? Personally, I recommend once a quarter, but that's because I also know my reset is not overly harsh on someone's system. So you just want to keep that in mind. Her other question for me was, how can I actually stop heavy metals? Love you so much. There's no way to actually stop heavy metals and toxins from coming in the body. Yes, you can do things to like minimize it, but at the end of the day, you know, with the way our society is, there's heavy metals and toxins all around us, and unfortunately, there's not much we can do about it. I mean, no, there's really, I was gonna say like maybe you could go to like an isolated area like the Amazon, and I'm like, no, pollution's there too. Oh, okay. So the next question is about probiotics, pre and probiotics. And okay, so here's what I'm gonna say about pre and probiotics. First, I am a fan, but second, there are basically like levels to pre and probiotics. And one of the best things you can do is figure out which one is gonna be best for you. So if you have ever taken a pre and probiotic and noticed you had bubble guts, and then you were like, I'm good, that means that was often too harsh on your system. So what would be really great for you is to look for a pre and probiotic that is more gentle on the system and go from there. There's a lot of different ones out there on the market. You're just gonna have to find the one that is really designed for you. So say for instance, you are somebody who has IBS, you would want to look for a pre and probiotic that has more ginger in it and is more like plant-based, as opposed to something that's a little bit more intense. Now, personally, I took the seed probiotic for about 2.5 years, and then in Q2 of this year, I stopped taking it. And one of the main reasons I stopped taking it is because it was just really, really intense on my system. And sometimes you don't need that level of intensity. I switched over to another pre and probiotic that I absolutely love. If you want to know what it is, send me a DM and I will make sure I get you the link and everything. But that's neither here nor there. You have to figure out kind of what works for you. Now, you might be somebody who's like, I don't want to take a pre and probiotic. What else could I do to like help my system, my gut? Fermented foods. They're literally so underrated, but fermented foods are super helpful if you are trying to, you know, get rid of bad bacteria and feed good bacteria, whether it be kombucha or sauerkraut or kimchi, whichever you want to do. These are really, really supportive and good for your gut. Now, I think that's it for the questions. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure that was it for the questions. Yep. That is it for today's Q&A. Now listen, I have a lot of changes happening and coming up, so make sure you press subscribe, because I don't think you're gonna want, let's try that again. Make sure you press subscribe because I don't think you're gonna wanna miss this. As always, love you, mean it.